Okay, good morning, class. I apologize for Tuesday. I was still doing a lot of prep work for my surgery, which I had yesterday, and I'm now recovering from. But everything's well. I should be pretty much in bed, but I wanted to make sure I recorded this for you all, so that way you have the study guide for the final exam. Of course, just a couple reminders. The film review essay is going to be due this Friday, so you have until the 2nd before midnight to submit that film review. If you have any questions, please reach out to me prior to that deadline. But we're going to cover a few of the questions, or at least cover a majority of the questions for your APA final exam, which will be available from Monday, was December 5th to December 7th before midnight. So you have from that Monday until I guess it would be the 8th, the Thursday, December 8th, before midnight. So you have all that time to take it. The grade will be applied as soon as you complete your exam. Um, and then your final grades will be put together once I've graded your film review. So everything should be there and ready to go for you by that final time. If you have any questions, concerns, please reach out to me ahead of time. Now, I do want to give you a heads up as far as what we're seeing here. These answers are not going to be in the same order you see them now. The quiz automatically will mix the answers for every exam. So do not go by the answer marked as A, B, C, or D. Instead, go by the answers that we cover and then that I will highlight. Okay? So that way you're putting that information to, you're committing it to memory, and that way when you take the exam, while you will have all of these same options, they're going to be mixed around and you don't know, like, oh, it was B on the study guide, but it's not going to be B on the final exam. And if you choose B, then it might be incorrect, right? So so please do, I apologize again for my sore throat. When they intubate you, it's pretty rough on your throat still. So I apologize again for that, but again, do not go by the letter associated with the answer. Just commit the answer to memory, because when you take the final exam, it's going to be mixed up and the answers aren't going to be in the same place. Okay, so uh, now let's start with one. What does APA stand for? Now, at the beginning of the class introduction, I will always mention APA stands for this, and it's going to be the American Psychological Association, right? This is going to be our answer right here. Oop, let me Control Z, undo that. Now we're just going to highlight this right here. Okay, so excuse me for just a second. The cats are... Okay, so that is answer to question one, right? It's not American Paper Arrangement. It's not Angry Platypus Army or All Points Assignment. What APA stands for is the American Psychological Association. That's the group who put together the formatting standards for writing these papers. And that's why every science field tends to rely on this style, because it was done by us medical/science field. Okay, so question number two. Your essay should have which of the following. You're only going to select, well, you're going to actually choose multiple that apply, right? So is it double spaced? Should it have 1-inch margins? Should it be 12-point font? Or do you get to choose whatever font fits your mood? The answer is very simple, right? That's going to be A, B, and C in this case, or double spaced, 1-inch margins, right? And 12-point font. Those are the requirements for all your essays. The only thing that's missing is it should be Times New Roman, right? All your essays are always going to be submitted in this format. Now, for question three, it asks, a cover page is required, true or false? Again, it mixes up your answers, but in this case, it's going to be true. Every APA format paper requires a cover page. And so you lose significant points if you do not have your cover page, right? Up to 25 points for missing cover page or reference page. So do keep that in mind. Next, we have the title is the first line of your cover page, but what information goes on the lines below it, right? So if we were to imagine, let me go ahead and put something here. This is the first line, right? It's your title in bold. And then we have lines underneath it, right? This is your first line. Let me go ahead and specify. So I've given you the first line, right? That's the title. It's in bold. Now, what goes underneath this in those sections? And you're going to select them by drawing lines between the two. Okay, so let me go ahead and get a pencil here. So what goes on the second line? That's going to be the student or author's name, right? So we're going to go here to here. What goes on the third line beneath this, the author student name, is going to be the college information. So this comes from here to here. Then we have on the fourth line course information. So this stays here. Underneath that, on the fifth line, you're going to have your instructor's name. And then finally, on the sixth line, you're going to have your due date. So when you're doing this on yours, it's going to have matching, so you just get to click the ones that you want to go where you want them to. But in this case, I'm just showing you kind of like the expectation is to be able to look at the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth lines, right? The 5 lines underneath your title, and put what goes or what corresponds to those lines, right? So again, its first line is your title in bold. Underneath that, you have your author's name. Then you have your college information, followed by course information, instructor's name, and then lastly the due date. Okay. And so at the bottom of the cover page, this is another true or false question. At the bottom of the cover page information, an author's note is required. Is this true or false? This is going to be false. Cover page. Sorry, let me go ahead and undo that. Home and get back the highlighter. Yeah, it's false, right? An author's note is always optional. You can choose to use it, but it's not a requirement. So please do keep that in mind. All right. So give me just a second. The cats again are not getting along. So when we get to question 6 now, it's going to say, what is the minimum number of authors required to use et al. In subsequent in-text citation in paper, or what does et al. Stand for? I think for your essay, I've simplified it. This is no longer in the question, so I'll go ahead and strike that through. This is no longer in your question. The question is just how many authors are required in your in-text citation to have or to use et al, right? And so the answer for this one is the options are either 3 authors, 3 authors and all. I've changed it so it's going to be, you know what? I think I made this a true or false. Give me just a second to review that. Okay, class. So I was a little confused in my in how I changed it. Actually, the question is simply, what does et al. Stand for? And it's going to be all but, and all, none at all, and some. And so in this case, the answer correctly is going to be and all, right? So this is the inclusion of all. So when you use et al, you would have 3 or more authors in your in-text citation, but rather than put all 3 authors' last names, you would use et al to simplify that and just say this author and everyone else, or and all, right? And so that's what B is going to be for. Well, I should say and all is the answer for et al, and that's pretty straightforward translation. Et al and all. Okay, and so let's go to 7. What are additional headings? So we talked about this, or at least I lectured about this on several instances in the past, right? Is it additional information about the authors? Is it the level 1 through 4 headings used at the beginning of each paragraph? Is it page numbers, or is it where you get your sources from? Additional headings are going to be the level 1 through 4 headings that we use at the beginning of each paragraph, right? They're required. A level 1 heading is the one that's you use for your title. It's bold and centered at the top of the page. Level 2 headings are going to be the ones that you use for your paragraphs. They're going to be left align and bold. And that's exactly what we're going to get into as we look at the other questions, right? 8 says, what are some of the hallmarks of a level 1 heading? And you're going to check all that apply, right? So should it be the title of the essay? Yes, that's going to be one part of it. Should it be bold? Yes, it needs to be bold. And should it be centered, left aligned, or italicized? Well, it's going to be centered because we just talked about that. And so this is the hallmarks of a level 1 heading. So you would select all these that apply. Now, what are some of the hallmarks of a level 2 heading? Should it be bold? That's actually correct. Yes, it should be bold as well. Should it be left align? And that's also going to be correct. It's going to be left align. Now, do any of these other ones apply to it? Is it the title of your essay? No, we've already discussed that. Should it be centered? No, because it's left align. And should it be italicized? No, right. Italicized are saved for level 3 and level 4 headings, not for level 2. So in this case, these are the two that we would highlight. Again, these answers are going to be mixed up when you choose them. So just remember that for level 1 heading, title, bold, centered. For a level 2 heading, it should be bold and left align. Okay. Now, when we had talked about using a quote in your essay, we talked about it has to have 3 parts. So you were going to select all that relate to it or correspond to the answers, right? So the 3 parts of your direct quote, is it a paraphrase? No, that's a different type of quote, right? It's not a direct quote. But is there a signal phrase? Yes. A direct quote has a signal phrase. And does it use a word-for-word quote of the information you're selecting? Yes, that is also correct. And then at the end, is there a parenthetical citation? Yes, you need to have parenthetical citation that includes your author's last name and year, as well as page number if applicable. So those are the 3 things that go into a direct quote that need to be a part of it, right? The signal phrase is a sign that says here's the source and where it's coming from. And so you would use something like according to Dr. Zerod from Harvard Medical, and then you would use quote, millions of people suffer from this condition, blah, 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 right? And then the parenthetical citation would also include the author's last name and year of publication. But since we've used our author's name, or at least the doctor's name here, the parenthetical citation might move around, but it still needs to have the year of publication and then the page number wherever that author's name is found. But those 3 parts make up a majority of your direct quotes, okay? So now that we've discussed that, let me go ahead and change this. I think we changed it to there are only 2 types of citations, right? Paraphrasing and direct quotings. This is going to be true. Paraphrasing and direct quotes are the way you will go about citing or giving information. They still have the same 3 parts, right? A signal phrase, the quoted material, and the parenthetical citation. However, a direct quote uses a word-for-word transition or transposition of those words into your paper, where a paraphrase is going to take, instead of word for word, it's going to summarize the idea, and the author is going to use their own words to say what the other author said. But it's still going to use a signal phrase to show where that source is coming from, and it's going to use parenthetical citation to show that that information or that idea comes from another person's paper, so that way it's not indirect plagiarism, right? So there are only 2 types of citations, paraphrasing and direct quoting. That is true. What is a paraphrase? Is it when you drop in words without context? Is it when you take the words or ideas from another source and use your own words to state it? Is it when a philosophical approach connects to an author's idea and they form a new idea or synthesis? Or is it when only certain words from a quote are used? This is, again, as we mentioned, when you take words or ideas from another source and you use your own words to state it, right? You summarize what somebody else is saying. And so that's what's the answer going to be for what is a paraphrase. 13, when you're quoting directly from a source, what information do you need to include in the parenthetical citation? Now there's options here, right? But you're going to choose the one that has all the information that's needed in the parenthetical citation. Now here's a big hint. It needs to have the 3 things if applicable. That means if it's given, there's 3 things that you need, right? And here it says author's name and date of publication if given. Okay, that's usually what we end up with because most online sources don't have the 3rd option. So it's not just the author's name. It's not just the author's name and date of publication, but it's the author's name, date of publication, and page number if it's offered, right? So because we use online sources, we tend to only think of author's name and date. But if we use a physical source, then we need to be able to give the page number that we got it from. Excuse me. And so therefore, in an ideal situation, this is going to be your answer. These 3 things are needed. Okay. And again, you wouldn't put your name in a citation for a source. Alright, kitties. So which of the following is not a formatting requirement of APA? You use 10-point font, you double space your text, use 1-inch margins, or Times New Roman. Now, so since we had already discussed this question, I have actually removed it So the test is only going to be 20 questions. So that means 14 is going to be at the end of your paper. If sources were used, you are not required to use a reference list. Is this true or false? This is going to be false. Anytime you use sources in an APA format paper, you need to put your references at the end, right? And so going off of that question, your reference page should always be a page separate from the main text of your essay. This is absolutely true. A lot of times you're going to lose points when you attach your reference page to the end of your paper just by spacing it out a couple times. It should always be separate and its own page altogether. Just like the cover page is its own page separate from the essay, the reference page is its own page separate from the essay. But they are the last page for the reference page and the first page for the cover page. So this is true. Always make sure that your reference page is completely separate from the essay itself. 16, what goes at the top of your reference page in bold if you have multiple sources? So the reference page, or what goes at the top of your reference list, should be a level 1 header, which means it's going to be centered and it's going to be bold and it's going to be the title of the list below it, but it should be a specific title. Now, is it called works cited? No, that's specifically for MLA format. MLA uses works cited. Is it an annotated bibliography? No, that's just for an assignment that that someone can give you to annotate those sources. Now, but for the most part, your reference page is not going to be called an annotated bibliography. Now, is it references or reference? This is our last two options. Which one would you think it's going to be? The key here is multiple sources. When we have multiple, we're required to have the S for plurality, right? That means there's more than one. And so in this case, if we have multiple, more than one sources, it should be references to emphasize that plurality. All right. So this is going to be the answer to 16. 17, what goes in the upper right-hand corner of your header in any APA formatted paper, right? So at the top right, you have your header, which includes your title or your running head if it's the cover page on the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side, there's always going to be one specific thing that needs to be there. Is it A, page number, B, the name of your professor, C, the title of your essay in all caps, or D, your full name? Now, we've already mentioned that the title goes on the left. We don't need the name of the professor, and we don't need your name on the paper. So the only thing that should ever be in that right hand top header space is going to be the page number, right? So it should say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever it's going to be to all the pages. So this is going to be your answer. For 18, when listing your sources in a reference list, you should list them by, when we're talking about your annotated bib, we would mention that you would list them in a certain order, right? Is that order oldest to newest, alphabetical by article name, alphabetical by author's last name, or the order that they appear in your essay? Well, that's never the case. Sometimes it works out this way, but this is not intentionally going to be used. Oldest to newest article doesn't matter, right? Alphabetical is true, but not of the article name specifically. It's going to be of your author's last name. So this is the answer that we're going to be looking for. Alphabetical. Your reference list should always be alphabetical order by your author's last name and listed in such a way. Next, we have sort of a formatting or the structure in which we would find our reference list, right? We have our author's last name, first initial, then we have a parentheses followed by a blank. What goes in that blank? That's going to be year, not date accessed, because the date accessed is always going to be newer than the date it was published. So we need the year that it was published, right? So we're going to go ahead and put in copy here. Like that. We'll also underline it so that you know that this is part of what needs to be under part of a fill in the blank. And then so that means what goes in B, right? So after the year, we have the article name, the publisher / website, and then we have the retrieved from link, right? So this is going to be what goes in B. Okay, so that's the way they would look, right? It's going to be Author's last name, first initial, the year in parentheses, article name, publisher website, and the retrieved from link or URL that you're getting that information from, and 19. And so with that being the order, the last question is going to require that you put this information here, 1 through 5, in that same format, right? So you need to have your author's last name here, your the first initial after that, and then followed up by the information as we would have it, right? So quite simply, it would be Porunda D 2000. Oh, sorry, let me go ahead and put that 2022 period. Then I'll have the article name. Police in Juarez Police in riot gear evict Little Venezuela. Sorry, I forgot to put the one apostrophe. Period. Then we go to our publisher slash publication slash website, and this will be in italics, right? So it's El Paso. The El Paso Times. Followed by a comma, and then the retrieved from, and you can just copy and paste this link. Well, actually, you're not going to be able to copy and paste it from the quiz, so you're going to have to type it out. To the best of your ability, just go ahead and type it out. Okay, and again, make sure that if possible, include the hanging indent like you would in most sources. Okay, so this is what it would look like. This is your answer once you've completed question 20, right? So it's going to give you a space to write in your answer, and this is what it should look like given this information, right? Author's last name, first initial, the year of publication, the name of the article, followed by the publisher publishing information, and then the link that you got this information from. Okay, so hopefully this helps. This has just been a quick review on the exam. As far as what to expect for the final, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Those of you that have been doing your APA format papers perfectly are not going to have any problem, because all the information is what we've been covering throughout the semester. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and thank you for having a wonderful class. Please check your emails for the student reviews, right? The student surveys, so you can go ahead and answer, be honest as possible. Now I do appreciate any constructive criticism, because it helps me develop my class and get better at what I'm doing. So if you can leave comments, that would be the best way to really provide feedback, but whatever you choose to do is going to be your prerogative. Again, the school does look at those, and sorry about that, my cats are just being whiny today. You just take a look, the school does take a look at those, and they decide, you know, what's best for the school and how do we improve. So please be honest, do your best on the exam, and take those student surveys when you get a chance. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you through your assignments, your essays, and your discussion board posts. Final grades will be posted as soon as finals are done, and you can take a look for them there. Now, you will lose access to Blackboard, I believe, after that weekend, but I'll make sure once your grades are done by Thursday that all your final grades are posted immediately, so you can review them there. Okay, thank you guys, have a wonderful day.